Hello, everyone. I am Laura Hochman, the medical matchmaker, CEO and founder of Happy Day Health, and chair of the Private Practice 101 conference that is starting tomorrow evening. So, today we have Dr. Brian Gantwerker. He is a neurosurgeon and one of the speakers that we are highlighting today in our preview of the conference. So, Dr. Gantwerker, thank you so much for having us. Go ahead and, for being on here today.
You're very
Good.
welcome.
Go
You're very
ahead.
welcome. Just so the audience knows, I was a tiny bit late because I was seeing a post-op patient. So I'm actually still a functioning doctor, seeing patients and everything. So thank you for letting me on, despite the fact I was a tad bit late. It's great to be here and looking forward to talking to you and everyone else, and hopefully imparting some knowledge and giving people confidence when we do our stream tomorrow night.
Now, you started your own practice, so this is your practice, and you will be speaking a little bit about some of the things you learned. What are some things that people can take away from your talk?
Well, I would say it's actually our practice. So my wife and I run it together. So we're kind of a mom and pop shop, and that's kind of one of the important first things you're going to do is if you decide to hang your own shingle, you really have to have someone you trust as your partner, as your work person, as your mirror image, if you will, on the business side of things, because you're going to run the business, but they'll really help run the business. So my thing is everything I'm saying is just an opinion. It worked for me, and it's not like a guarantee. You can't write down like a recipe. But there are some basic ingredients, just like you're making bread or baking a cake. You have to have like eggs and flour, salt, and baking soda. But it's different from person to person. But what I'm hoping to impart is that people will learn during my talk about when it's time to end a toxic work relationship that you have and possibly go off on your own.
That's great. And I think it's interesting you talk about, having a partner that you trust and that kind of brings in the partnership aspect. Do you want to do your own thing? Do you want to, um, you know, join with someone? Do you want to start with someone? Do you want to add someone? There's a lot that comes to it.
Yes.
What's a toxic work environment that you've seen or that you've experienced that you think a lot of us would probably just kind of push under the rug, and then kind of where did that go from there?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a sneak preview of my talk. I'm just going to say, both, from hearing stories and some experiences. I think the things that you need to watch out for, and I'm going to talk about them as the four horsemen of the apocalypse during the talk. And it's sort of like those are the things that sort of come towards you or coming at you that really kind of signals it's time to move on. And so, without spilling the tea on that one, I'm going to talk about just some very general stuff. You will see sometimes that there are duties and things being asked of you that you had thought you'd worked out prior to coming on or prior to starting, that all of a sudden, I call it the clouds, I call it the Lando Calrissian and Cloud City effect. When, if you're a Star Wars dork like I am, then you remember the greatest movie of all time, which is The Empire Strikes Back. Vader decides to take Leia and Chewie away from Lando Calrissian, even though he already has Han Solo. And so Vader says to Lando, I've altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further. So you really got to be conscious of when that starts to happen, when all of a sudden, like for instance, they're having you take call at 6 different hospitals and you'd only worked on, the deal to be 3. If you're seeing 50 patients instead of 30 that you had signed up for, and they're not giving you any ancillary help, doing other people's charting, being on call even when you're not on call, going out to remote locations. These are all things I've seen happen, in other people's lives that really kind of is a signaling it's time to go. So when they start altering things and changing things without any assent or consent, and especially if it's outside of your agreement, which usually you've hopefully worked out beforehand, it's might be time to move on. So there are other things that we'll touch on, but that's like the number one thing is when the parameters of your functions change, like especially your workload going up and you're not getting any additional help, like you're not getting another physician. I'm personally don't work with any mid-levels, and we can obviously have a side table about that. But if you require a mid-level or need someone to sort of be in there with you, if they don't give you anyone and everyone else has got 3 of them and you have 0, then there's a problem.
Hmm. And you know what that reminds me of a little bit is, you're talking about the changing rules of administration and the changing rules of how you practice. It's similar to what's going on with health insurance, where you negotiate something and then health
Ta-da!
insurance says, actually, we would like to pay you even less
How
and
about
require you to do more.
one thing people are going to learn, if they haven't already from being in practice, is there are only so many ways to screw somebody. And I hate to use that term, but it really is true. And so you'll see that there's like almost like a playbook, like 5 to 7 different maneuvers that they will do to demoralize you, really. And so insurance is a perfect example where you have a contracted rate, you submit a clean claim, meaning for those who don't do their own billing or claims, you have a CPT code, like an E&M code or surgery code that you submit. You got prior authorization for it, even though you're the doctor and the person approving it's not their doctor, but somehow plays them on TV. And then all of a sudden they won't pay you. They say, you need more documentation. We need your W-9. Or my favorite is they pay you and then they claw the money back 2 years later saying they overpaid you. So there's all sorts of ways. And being in private practice, you're still subject to those slings and arrows. But there's some people who do direct patient contracting, DPC, which I don't think I'll cover much, but I'm sure other people will. That really you're dealing less and less with insurance. But unfortunately, because they're so wrapped around the brainstem of our healthcare system, it's hard to fully extract yourself from it. I mean, you're always going to have to deal with them in some capacity. So yeah, they definitely like to change rules, just like hospital systems, just like large partnerships like to change rules. But there's only so many ways you can change them. And fortunately, there's very predictable patterns that you can kind of start seeing and hopefully prepare for, but you're never really fully insulated against all of this. But you can certainly kind of build a fortress around yourself as much as possible.
That's true. There was a hospital employed contract I looked at for myself actually at one point, which I did not end up signing for many reasons. One of them was it said that I agreed to their rules and procedures, which will change from time to time. So
Mm-hmm.
so I agreed to whatever they decide to put in their rules. I was like, heck no.
Big red flag going up.
I know, right? Just like, how
Yeah.
does anyone sign that? No.
Yeah.
So
I had an employment contract. I didn't take the job, but I had an employment contract put in front of me that said pretty much the same exact thing. And I looked at it and I showed it to my wife and she's like, what is this? It's like, so basically that the person said that he could change the contract at any given moment with my consent or without my consent, without notice. So he can basically think of something. Oh, by the way, you're going to be on call every night now at the hospital covering it. And I would have zero recourse. So yeah, that's a huge red flag right there.
that's so crazy. I want to say hi to Dr. Castro, who says, great to be here. Great to see you. So, yeah, I just think that is so crazy. I mean, I work with a lot of private practices and I couldn't even begin to imagine them putting that in their contract. I mean, all of them, before, not all of them, but most of them, before they send the contract out to the physician, they have me look at it and say, is this fair? Do you see anything here that I'm missing? I kind of, and I'm not a lawyer, but I can definitely find things that say we're going to be allowed to change the rules anytime we want to. So.
Right. And that's the best thing you can do if you are going to go employed or employment, it's good that you look at the contract yourself. Please don't just sign it. And if you have call outs, then just take a little sticky note and show it to your lawyer. Say, hey, Jen, hey, Bob, whatever your lawyer's name is, this looks kind of funky. Is this something that I should look at, or we should maybe talk to them about and have thrown out? Chances are they won't, and they'll tell you it's boilerplate and this is a standard contract. It's never a standard contract. Don't. So just don't that's the other thing is they're going to gaslight you too. There are honest people out there. There are honest systems out there. They're good to work with. But when you start seeing stuff like that, it's always a red flag. They're gaslighting you, saying this is standard. Everybody signs this. And if that's the case, then you maybe need to look for a different job or sign it, just knowing full well that they'll exercise those options, and don't be surprised when they do.
Yeah, they always say everyone else signs it. So when, the same contract, one of the many things in the contract was their intellectual property clause saying that anything I do belongs to them.
Oh, yeah.
And, I own an addiction recovery course with my husband. And I had said to them, hey, this is kind of where that policies and procedure change thing comes. And I said, I can't sign this because I own a company. Self-recovery belongs to me and my husband. And I want to make sure to retain the ownership of our hard work. And their answer was, well, we just signed a cardiologist yesterday who has 3 practices and he signed it. So you should too. I was like, what has one thing got to do with the other?
No,
No.
negatory, negatory.
Right.
There's a concept I'm sure everyone knows about carve outs. Carve outs being like they can make a carve out in the contract for your practice is yours and yours alone. And because if you don't call those carve outs out, then they're going to exercise the options. And it's very possible that you could still have a carve out and they'll still try to say that they own something. I had a colleague who has a startup and he was on staff at a health center, large health system. And he's doing fantastic, by the way. He's off on his own. He's doing his own startup thing and we're invested in it. He had come up with the idea. I can talk about it a little bit. It's called radiant fetal oximetry, where they're actually doing non-invasive monitoring the fetus's blood oxygen without sticking a probe in, without sticking any needles in, just non-invasive. And it's out there. It's got FDA clearance, doing amazing. And they want the department where he was, which I can't name, wanted to say that they owned it. And he's like, no, this is my idea. I started before I got here, and you have no ownership. And a lot of his partners sort of became very angry very quickly, and that relationship eventually ended. So yeah, if you have IP you're working on, if you have IP that you own, especially in your case, then you have to make sure that's protected in your employment agreement. Otherwise, they will come for it and they will sue you for it, and they will cost you a lot of money, and it'll be a Pyrrhic victory. You may win at the end of the day, but it will exhaust you, and it will take a toll on you, even though you don't think it will. It absolutely will.
Yeah, that's so true.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Yeah.
Okay, so you own
It's
your
not all
own
doom and gloom, though. It's not all doom and gloom. It's not all exactly. It's not that terrible.
It's not all doom and gloom. It's just almost all doom and gloom.
98% awful. Just the world's ending. I talk about the apocalypse in my talk. It's terrible. We're all gonna die. No, it's fine. It's fine. We'll get through. We'll muddle through.
Dr. Humor, Dr. Humor. So as a private practice owner, what is your favorite thing about running your own practice?
Oh my God. I'm very blessed. I live and work in Los Angeles, and you meet some well-known people sometimes, but what I love the most is I get to meet new people every single day. And I have such a variety of people that I get to meet: artists, musicians, and not even famous people, just very interesting, cool, funny, hilarious people that kind of bring their own little shtick to every interaction. And that's what I tell everybody I love so much about being a doctor, is that you never know who's going to walk in your door. And you never know, you have like simpatico relationships with people. You just become very close to them. One of my patients worked on Star Wars, and I got to go to the old ILM building in Marin County for a reunion. That was like a crazy, just insane experience, just nuts. And plus you get to do just different interesting things, get to meet people like you and Donna, and you just sort of get out there and you sort of just start meeting other colleagues and the patients you meet, the surgeries you do, and just sort of growing your business organically and getting to choose which cases you do and don't do. I mean, granted, there's always a possibility I have to go do something I really, really don't want to do, just because it's an urgent thing or it's an emergency. But, if you don't want to do brain tumors, you can have a colleague see it or someone else see it, or you just tell the person that, I don't do that. But the best part is just having your freedom. And freedom is probably the sweetest thing about having a private practice. It really, and it's sad because I see a lot of people muddling through on Facebook groups and Twitter. They're going through some stuff, and it's awful to see sometimes. Some people are super happy, and I'm really glad for them. Some people are like, this is dope. I love this. I get a steady paycheck. I know what's coming down the pipe. I work with my system. Hey, that's great. There are a lot of people who don't have that freedom and are forced to do things and function ways that they never thought they'd have to in medical school, when they had that starry-eyed look and they thought everything was going to be roses and chewing gum. And unfortunately, it's not. But getting back to private practice, it's hard. You have to build. Things are very expensive. You're your own bank. But the fact is that your job's different every single day, and you have some agency and control over it. And it's really great. Really great.
It's a lot of variety.
Yeah.
I think you speak a lot to the you don't know what you don't know. A lot of the private practices I work with, they are just flummoxed. They're like, why would anyone not want to work in a private practice? Like, they just don't get it. They don't. And I think I mean, the private practice owners don't understand why anyone would subject themselves to that. But I think a lot of the physicians, who unfortunately many of whom are miserable, have no idea what that freedom can be. And I think there's a monetary gain to be had from being employed by a hospital system. There's
Mhm.
a good amount of golden handcuffs. The hospital systems are kind of in bed with the insurance companies. And so, they're able to pay better, but there's a cost to your freedom. And it's worth it. It's so worth
I
it.
agree. I agree. I usually get a very strange look from especially people in my specialty in neurosurgery, where I describe to them what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and they just, well, some of them will mock it. It's like, oh, you're seeing patients with concussion. I was like, yeah, I have a very active concussion practice. Well, why do you do that? That's not operating. It's like, well, tell them, well, I get to meet lots of interesting people. I participate in the NFL Players Association lawsuit, so I got to meet a ton of amazing athletes, people who you would know, and it's just like I still do it, but I do it for like junior athletes or people do surfing and mountain biking and just everyday Joes and Janes. And some athletes still come and see me, but I'll tell you, like, I love that. I love the fact that I have a very practice, and not all I do is operate. Not all I do is do surgery. And a lot of times, I think people sort of get, well, there's frankly they may be a little bit jealous, but they may be just totally not understanding, like, how does that work? And it's hard sometimes to explain how it does work, and sometimes it doesn't. So, some people may go out and try private practice and it doesn't work, and they end up back, employed or doing locums, which is it's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to try and fail, believe me. I mean, but if you can make it go and you can catch a gust of wind and keep going, then keep going. Because practicing the way it used to be when you'd have a private practice, a woman, a man opens up their business, hangs a shingle, and just starts seeing patients. It's really hard to do now, but it's not impossible. But you've got to make smart choices, and it starts with like realizing that your current situation is untenable and it's toxic and it's eating at your soul. And I think if I can help people sort of get to that realization, like you run an addiction program with your husband, what's the first step to solving your problem or your addiction? Admitting you
Knowing
have
you
it.
have a problem,
Okay,
right?
so you've got a problem, right? So you've got an employment problem, and it's because they've got you, and because you're a nice person and you're ethical, they're going to use that against you. They're going to leverage the fact that you care about your patients in order to keep control of you. Because, like, I can't leave my patients, I can't leave my practice. What am I going to do? Where's Mrs. Smith going to get her cardiac meds from? They know that. That's why they do it to you, because you care. So it's not about not caring. No, it's about caring in a way that you don't feel like you're having your soul sucked out of the bottom of you. And that's kind of what it's about.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you said earlier about your colleagues, wondering why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Something I've noticed, because, I have a very narrowed view of healthcare in America because I do not live in every state in America. But since I started my business where I work with practices all over the country, something I've noticed is the Northeast and the West Coast are very, how do I put this into words? They like their prestigious institutions. The institutions can treat them like absolute garbage,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
they've got a name. And so if
Mm-hmm.
they have a name,
Mm-hmm.
people want to work there, which I
Correct.
find very interesting. And I've spoken with doctors from big name universities, and they're miserable. And part of why they stay is, well, I'm almost going to be, see, I don't even know all of the terms for the different professor levels, but I'm going to go from
Assistant,
this kind of
associate,
professor to that
full.
kind of professor. And
Right.
I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Hate your life.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It matters to you.
I think part of it's, the deification of different institutions. I think that's got to stop for a number of reasons. I went to state school. I'm very proud I went to state school. I did go to Rush, which is like not Harvard, but I got a great medical education there. I had an outstanding residency at Case Western, and I had a really great spine fellowship at Barrow. And Barrow's a name that all over the world in terms of neurosurgery, but a lot of people don't know what the hell Barrow is or what it represents. It's a great institution, but I don't sort of go up. That's not the first words out of my mouth. It's not what I think of the first time, although I'm so grateful for the training I had. And I am so grateful that it gave me a lot of tools that I still use today. But I think it's important that the deification of institutions and being part of an institution has got to stop, because that's part of what the bondage of the employment is. It's that I want to get to associate, I want to get to assistant, I want to get to full professor. And it's great. I have a lot of colleagues in academic medicine, some of whom are not very happy, and some of whom end up moving around and dislodging their family from where they are in order to keep moving up that ladder. And it's almost mandatory part of it when you're part of an institution that eventually you have to leave the institution to go up any further, because there's a ceiling over you, or someone else does what you do and they're better connected than you are. So, and then you have to uproot your whole family and then go somewhere else in order to keep on that track. And that's fine for some people, but I would say the majority of people don't like moving. I hate moving, but it's necessary sometimes. You don't have a choice. But in terms of employment and academic versus employed versus private, being part of an institution, while it has a great name, sometimes there are toxic departments, and the only way to not be part of it is to leave. And you can't exist within that space and expect to operate as an independent person. It's very rare you get to do that. I've seen it. It's extremely rare to be able to get to.
Yeah. No, I've definitely seen it for sure. But I agree with you. Be somewhere you can create your culture.
That's right.
You get to decide.
That's right. And so that agency comes with private practice. You get to make your own brand. You get to see your cases that you want to see and build a reputation based on your accomplishments and not that of your parent institution. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people, that's very fulfilling.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back in time and tell yourself one thing, let's say go back in time to when you graduated your 10,000 years of training. It's not like it's brain surgery. Oh, wait, it is. I bet you've never heard that before.
There's your rim shot. There's your rim shot. I'll give it to you. I'll give you the rim shot. It was really nice. I met actually a guy who was a little rocket scientist, and we took a picture and went like this. Like he's a rocket scientist, I'm the neurosurgeon. Like we were pointing at each other. It's not rocket science, it's not brain surgery. Except it is. So I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I dislodged you.
Back to when you finished your training.
Yeah.
And tell yourself one thing. What would that be?
I think I would just say keep an open mind. The one thing they drum into you during all kinds of training is there's only one way to get out there and practice. And I think the only thing you have to remember is that the only way to practice is to practice ethically and in a way that makes you feel good, makes you whole. And so if you can do those, just keep those two things in mind. If you feel you're working at a large, employed firm, you can make the most positive effect, go for it, man. Enjoy it. But if you feel like you've seen it, you've done it, you've kind of been through the academic, you've seen the ups and downs and the intrigue and the nonsense that goes back and forth sometimes in some departments. And if it's not for you, just have the confidence to say, hey, that's not for me, and try to find some other way to do it. And I think that's what I would tell myself, is just have the confidence and realize that you don't doubt that that's the right way to do it. Because if it doesn't feel right to you, it's not going to be right in 5 or 10 years either.
Yeah. Listen to yourself. I think a lot of us don't listen to ourselves.
Yeah. Or you get the crap scared out of you by your professors or by your trainees that there's no other way to do this. That's the only way. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes the ethical and moral or medically correct thing to do is to do something a certain way. But it comes to opening a practice, though, there's not just one way to do it. And it's important you realize that there are other ways to practice other than under an umbrella of someone else.
Which is why everybody should come to our Private Practice 101 conference.
I hope so. I really hope
everyone comes. It's going to be awesome. We're going to talk about everything. I mean, there's the mindset, of course, and there's we're going to go over the different types of practice models. We're going to talk about insurance billing and finances of your practice, personal finances. We'll talk about what is holding you back, how to move past that. We're going to talk about all the different types. I mean, we've got everything covered. So I'm really excited. I think it's free. You have nothing to lose. I posted the link in the comments and I'll go in after we're done chatting as well. So please do come sign up. Everybody watching, tell your friends. Today's Thursday, right? It starts Friday evening. It'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Today's Thursday.
There's going to be some awesome freebies given away. So come get your freebies. And I look forward to seeing you all there. Come
free drinks. No, we're not doing We're not doing
You
we're not doing
know,
free drinks, so
they
don't
are free.
never mind.
You
No
can
free
walk
drinks.
to your sink and get some water. You can have,
Yeah. There
but
you
it's
go.
virtual, so I am
All
not
right,
sending
everybody.
everyone drinks. Come in your
You
pajamas.
don't get a
I will
drink
be.
ticket.
I will be in my
Yes.
pajama pants. I may not be in my pajama shirt, but I'll
Yeah, no hard pants allowed. No hard pants allowed. Just
pants,
wear whatever you
pants
want.
not
Wear your
required.
joggers. Exactly. Yes. But do wear something.
Yeah, please do, or at least don't
Yeah.
show us if you're not.
Or turn your camera off if you can. So all good.
Oh, all right.
Thank
Well,
you
thank
so
you so
much.
much for joining
Oh
us.
no, enjoyed it. It was a blast. Thank you so much. I look forward to virtually seeing everybody tomorrow. And I just hang in there. It's going to get better.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.